Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendu. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're going to kick off our show today talking politics, of course, because that's still very heavy in the air. Yes, I know football is also heavy in the air, but the Super Eagles are not there, so we can't do all too much on that, even though we're going to be touching on football a little later on the show today. But yes, politics is heavy in the air. Today, Osun State got a brand new governor, and the president of Detty, who's been sworn in as the executive governor of Osun State. So things are moving on in that sphere. But away from that, of course, the general elections in February are fast approaching. Campaigns are happening here and there. There's a lot of rallying and conversations and banter. And a lot of Nigerians still have questions about how things are going to shape up. There's a belief that this is probably the most different elections we're going to have in our present republic. Lots of dynamics are different from the past. People are not sure what to expect. Predictions, polling, data are being thrown all over the place, and we're going to be trying to dissect some of that and see if we can get some more clarity about, the elections in February and what to expect. Joined now by my guest in our Abuja studios, Olufemi Biso, who's a public affairs analyst, and Ezen Wanwagu, who's the chairman partners for Electoral Reforms. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me, Ebuka.
Thank you very much. Let me start with you, Ezenwa. Like I said, these elections seem very different. Besides the fact that, there seems to be a lot more talk around the candidates today, with a huge number of new registered voters getting into the thick of things. What's been the most difference you've seen in the pattern of elections leading up to February this year, different from, the previous 4 or 5 elections we've had in this country?
I think, Ebuka, that the most significant revolutionary thing that has taken place is the enactment of the Electoral Act 2022. That piece of legislation has redefined elections in some very fundamental ways. You need to appreciate that the outcomes are really for partisans. But process is important in how you look at elections. So in retweaking the legal framework for the conduct of the 2023 elections, we shifted the needle a bit. And that way you have about 10, 11, very important things that have reshaped the elections. First, you'll be talking about the financial independence of INEC. The fact that 1 year before elections, INEC will have the resource, the money that they need to conduct these elections. What that means is that you are able to pay vendors, you are able to perhaps take away the perennial logistic challenges that we faced in our elections, because you can then engage quite early enough, and then you take away fire brigade measures. You talk about things around inclusion that now makes it, almost mandatory for INEC to ensure that people living with disabilities have all that they will need to engage in the elections. You also have the times for the campaign, which is extended to almost 6 months period of campaigns, which we didn't have before. And then you have the 180 days. Then you have all those pre-election issues that has been a challenge before. Most of it has been taken care of by the Electoral Act. The issue around dereliction of duty by INEC officials, if they do that now, they have a fine, or they could go to jail.
Okay.
Then the most important one is the use of electronic formats for result management,
okay,
for verification, what do you call it, authentication of the voters that we call beavers. So these fundamental things have shifted the way elections are conducted previously. And you can also see that for the first time, the voter register is up there now for every Nigerian to, on the website of INEC. You can go there and see those who are in your voter register. That was shrouded in secrecy before now. So, so fundamentally, those are the shifts. But that doesn't mean that it's all uhuru for free, fair, credible, acceptable.
All right. Yes.
Election.
Thank you.
The human element,
sorry to cut you in there, because I just wanted to follow up on that and just come to you, Olufemi, because I think everybody agrees that, the Electoral Act has sort of changed the game for a lot of reasons, and we can even see it in the body language of some politicians who have been uncomfortable with certain, provisions there. We keep hearing people talking about beavers, whether it should be used or not, trying to challenge it in court and all of that, but I just want to hear from you on, all of the points that he's raised there. Also added to that is the fact that, this new format where we have this length of time before elections, do you think it's a good or bad thing? There are people who have said that, their campaign season is a little too long, and I don't know if it works for Nigeria. We typically have about 4 to 6 weeks in the past between primaries and the main election. Is this going to be a different thing? And secondly, something you touched on there about the voter register. I talked about it on the show, I think a week ago. This talk about underage voters again have come up. Do you still have confidence in the fact that at the end of the day, people who should be voting will be voting?
Well, the truth is, first of all, just like Mr. Izawu said, we need to give credibility to President Muhammadu Buhari for signing the Electoral Act, because that has really changed the electoral game. Okay, so because if you looked at it, now that we have the ABIS, which INEC has released, so you can go there, you can query the data we have on the INEC portal, and after querying the data, then you can now, INEC can now look at it, re-evaluate the data, and of course, those we have the underage and the likes can be addressed. So, but if you look at the length of campaign and when the election, of course, it is peculiar. In fact, this 2023 election, when people talked about free and fair election, to me, I believe the last 2 electoral cycles has been a bit better than what we used to have. And of course, thanks to technology. However, one thing we also need to realize is that technology in the hands of a fraudster can also be a fraud on its own. So the new technology now will help us with the beavers, which is the bimodal means of voters identification. We help in reducing, of course, double voting, in reducing people who are not supposed to vote. Of course, you are not on the voters register. You can't vote on that same day. So all those things are pointer to the progress which we are making as a nation. Yeah, there might be baby steps, but of course there are progress to what we are making as a country as regards our election. It's an election free, fair, credible, and all-inclusive. Yeah, I think 2023 should give us a very good pointer into what is expected of us as a nation. One, if you looked at it, the heightened engagement of most especially the youth. The youth now are now more engaged. They now, the conversation has now been brought to the mainstream. Before, at least, we've said it on this show that when it comes to politics, governance, and election, an average Nigerian youth, we've been pretty pessimistic. And of course, we see that it barely some truth. But now the dynamics is changing. So we believe that as a plus. And of course, the length. Well, I don't think the length will have any negative effect on the impact of the election, because it avails the electorate to continuously or have a sizable length of time to engage those who want to become their leaders. And I always tell people, we've had too much focus on presidency. We are leaving out the 300 plus 360 House of Rep members. We are leaving out the 109 senators, because these are parts of what makes a better nation. So we need to bring that our engagement and go back to our local community. That is what the length of time should do for us, to be able to say, okay, you are going to represent us in the State Assembly, you are going to represent us in the House of Assembly. What are your plans? These are what we should use the length of time for. The length of time is beautiful, and I see it as a plus. And of course, like some people would say, it has now made the electoral process to be more or less like a marathon, which is not a sprint. So the best, those who have the resources, we continually engage their people to the final day of the election.
Okay. Let me come to you now, Mr. Nwagu. I know we're all very excited about, the new Electoral Act, but the one thing that doesn't seem to, be covered yet is this new issue, maybe not so new, but more prevalent now, is the talk about vote buying. I mean, we've tested the act in a few of the state elections that have held recently, and we've heard incidents of that. Does that make you worried about what's to come? But the tendency of, okay, I'm not necessarily rigging, I'm inducing, voters to vote for me. And, yes, social media might help with people filming and putting it on social media, but not everywhere is going to have that, How do you think that can be combated?
Well, I think vote buying is a consequence of the incremental progress that we have made in the electoral process. First is that, like I keep saying, INEC is now completely unhelpful in terms of how people get into positions. Power has been restored back to the people. So the polling unit is now the center of the activity during elections. So politicians, as usual, always wanting to take advantage of good things, have turned it to a situation in what they want dubious advantage. So what we need to do is to set up mitigating processes that will make it difficult for people to sell or buy votes. And one way to do that is to, first and foremost, ensure that those who have responsibility of maintaining law and order during elections see that responsibility as sacred. And I mean the security agencies.
Yeah.
If you know that it is a crime and a crime is being committed right in your presence, we then must ask for value for money. When we deploy, as in the state elections, we deploy up to 31,000 security agents, the police alone, 17,000 in some cases. If we continue to have this very diabolical, act of vote buying, then we need to ask for service delivery index and outcomes from the security agencies. Somebody has to pay for not being able to arrest, prosecute both the buyer and the seller. That's first. INEC has continued to put in different measures to checkmate vote buying. First, you remember, Ebuka, that there was a thing about resetting the polling unit in a way that it confers secrecy and all that, but it didn't look like it worked very effectively. Secondly, there was also the issue of don't take phones into the or cameras into the polling unit. All of those have not yielded as much benefit as. So it's attitudinal. We will have to mount a rigorous campaign in a way that people can find out the consequences, that this money that we are being given is just one Saturday in 4 years. For those who say, well, it doesn't matter, after all, we will not see them again. So when you take that money, no matter what amount of money it is, this election will hold 2 times in 4 years, and then you take. So I think that when you have an attitudinal challenge, what you need to do is to raise a more vigorous campaign. Legally speaking, you may not be able to deal with those who want to get dubious advantage, because they will continue to find ways. And the law is very clear that it is even 300 meters from the polling unit. So if people do that far away from their homes, you may not be able to. So I think that what we need to do is that the security agents have to be alive to their responsibilities. As we speak now, those who were arrested, we don't have a status update on those who were arrested in Ekiti and Osun, and that is supposed to be some kind of deterrent. So that deterrent is important. And I think that the responsibility will be squarely on security agents doing their job and not collaborating and subverting the will of the people in casting a free and fair vote, really.
All right, Mr. Bitoye, I guess my next question is not necessarily on free and fair elections, but more about accountability. You know, we've had certain candidates accused of, you know, being too exposed in the media, granting too many interviews, doing too many debates and all of that. And we have some other candidates who have said they're not going to do any of these media engagements. They are better placed campaigning in rallies and all of that, you know. But we know that the electorate in Nigeria is very complex. There are people who want to hear their president's debate and all of that. There's people who are probably better reached in this campaign grounds, you know. Is this a big factor in deciding how things go forward? Because the more you hear from these people, the more you're able to hold them accountable, even when they get into office. How is this affecting the dynamics, you think?
Okay, thank you. If we need to first of all understand that the dynamics in Nigeria, it's a bit different. And I can tell you for sure, of course, I don't have empirical evidence that 75 to 80% of Nigerians today technically have decided who they are going to vote for. So, and life itself, they say it's all about strategy. So if a candidate believes that my own audience, people I want to appeal to give me the vote, I can devise a means to reach out to them. If they're on the street, let me reach them on the street. If I will reach them on the social media, let me reach them on the social media. So a particular candidate believes that, okay, let me organize town hall meetings with, with small groups, pressure groups, because I believe they can influence their groups, they can influence their setup. If the strategy believes it will work for him, fine and good. And if the other candidates believe that, okay, let me use more of the media because I think that's where my power is, of course, it's balanced as far as it is not against the electoral law. Because one thing that is very, very important, like I was sharing with my leader before leaving the house, is that what we need to look at is our electoral justice system. We need to really help them because it's all about perception. So if a particular candidate believes this is my strategy and it is not against the electoral law, fine, let them enjoy. And if the other candidate believes that I need to be on social media, I need to be on the TV, fine and good. All what we want is give us like a kind of what we call a written document. Let us sign a pact between the citizen and, of course, the person that wants to lead. Then with that, we can now question you. This is your manifesto. You promise so, and this. Well, yes, over the years, we've not had the opportunity to really question them on that. But I believe moving forward now, the office of the citizen really needs to be much empowered. So with that, I don't think there's any much fools as regards whatever any candidate believes or any format any candidate believes he wants to reach out. Because, you know, they would say politics is local. I can choose, okay, let's go to the streets, let's go to the hinterlands. They don't even have social media. Let me go and reach them there. You understand? So whatever strategy it is, the most important thing is you must be ready to lead the most populous black nation on the planet Earth with sincerity of purpose, with what we call altruistic leadership. That is what we are asking for. So by the time you promise us you want to do that, then of course we are good to go. And the electoral justice system, you know, is just like a watchdog. And let me just add a point to what Mr. Ezeogu said. Ezenwa, apologies, sir. One thing that is very, very important when it comes to election integrity, either an election is free or fair, credible and inclusive, we all have a role to play. The media, the reportage from the media, it's also very, very important. The citizens, if you looked at it, who are the wreck? They are choosing among us. As a citizens, what we need to do is, apart from the fact that we need to hold INEC responsible, we need to make sure that our public institutions, they are truly independent, and of course, not just independent, they have the perception of fairness, which is very key. When you look at the wreck, who are the returning officers? Returning officers, they are mostly professors, VCs from our institutions of learning. So we now begin to ask that these are people that form the total of the electoral process. Look at it, we have the POs. We are the POs, mostly the NYC. Right. They are the youth, they fall into our own constituency. All right. So all of us, we have role to play. When you notice something that is not going right, you raise alarm. We talked about it. For Nigeria to get better, it is not just about Nigerian police. It's not just about INEC. We all need to all come together and, of course, work for a better Nigeria. It's a collective approach.
Sorry, we're completely out of time, but I just wanted to ask two of you very quickly, how confident are you in all of this about how the elections will turn out next year with regards to fairness and fairness? In one sentence, as quickly as you can, please.
I think, Ebuka, you need to first make the 2023 election a people-centered election.
Okay.
The period of campaigns that we have, we need to reverse it, where civic groups and organizations are holding town hall meetings of their own creation. There is no manifesto that you will see that is not printed in gloss. Most of it is lifted from Google.
Okay.
We need to set the agenda for the politicians for 2023.
All right. So, Lufemi, are you confident?
Well, yeah, pretty much confidence but like I said, a technology in the hands of a fraudster still becomes a fraud. So we need to continuously engage all stakeholders to make sure that the writing are being done. INEC has published what they use, the ABIS. So let's look at the data, scrutinize it. Then let's, of course, expect them to do the needful. And of course, the security agencies,
Thank you very
the
much.
parties. Let us all make sure all stakeholders do what they're supposed to do. Free and fair election, very possible in 2023.
Thank you very much. I think the central message here is that Nigerians, it's in your hands. Come out and vote and defend your votes all through the elections. We'll take a quick break now and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. It's time for us to talk sports. If you're a fan of football or if you're just anywhere in the world right now, even if you're not a fan of football, you definitely know that the World Cup is currently going on in Qatar, and that's all anybody can talk about. Yes, Nigeria is not at the World Cup, but still, you know, you're watching some games, even if you're watching them jealously. I'm joined here now by Chileke Dozie, who's a football enthusiast. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much.
I am a huge fan of the underdog at every tournament.
Yes.
It's Nigeria and the underdogs I go for. So I'm having a great tournament because I've been seeing some results that have been exciting for me so far. How would you rate this World Cup in terms of the games and the excitement it's thrown up? Yes, there's been a lot of 0-0 games, still, it's been exciting for me.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much. So the first of all, the games have been superb. Though sometimes you bring about the VAR part of it, the officiating and all, but then pretty much it's been okay. The underdogs, the surprising results, not for instance, the Saudi Arabia and Argentina.
Yes.
No one saw that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did see that as well.
Nobody saw that coming.
And
even
now,
the Saudis didn't see it coming.
And the Japan, Germany own too. No one saw that coming. Even after going, how many minutes to go? Like 15 minutes left, and they just turned it around.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that these two teams you mentioned, started out their tournament so well. Saudi Arabia has now gone on to lose their second game. Japan has now gone on to lose their second game. And Japan was the country I was rooting for, or still rooting for anyways. So what does this say about, the psychology of football? Sometimes you say, when you're running on a momentum, you're on a winning streak and it gives you confidence. But we've seen that flip on this side. What did it do differently, stopped with, started hearing Rolls-Royce stories, even if they are unconfirmed for the Saudi players. What happened differently in the second game?
Well, probably the whole excitement got into their heads and they relaxed a bit. Well, you could see, I'm sure you saw the video from the Saudi team, the coaches' halftime team talk.
Yes.
After going down in the first half against Argentina. So I'm sure probably they just reduced their whole energy and all, but hopefully, the third game, the deciders, it's going to be electric.
Which teams have stood out for you? We've had some of the big names who have, played and, shone brightly. France has done good. England started out great. It looks like things have slowed down a bit. Spain is going to be playing today after walloping Costa Rica. I believe it was 6 or 7-0 or something crazy like that. So we've seen some of the big teams still show up. Brazil had an excellent game in their first, showing. But I'm not very excited with the same old names.
Could you try again?
So first of all, which big names have excited you, and which new sort of underdogs have stood out for you?
The big names, we have to go with Brazil first of all.
Yeah.
Spain, being Spain. The whole tiki-taka and all.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I would say Germany, the first half of their game they did excellently well. Though they just missed a lot of their chances. They didn't just kill the game off, which happens in football. If you don't kill off your game, it comes back to bite you. Then England, their first game as well. But I would say USA. I'll give it to USA as the underdog.
Very solid team, actually.
Yes.
If we go by individual play and even the collective as a whole, how they've been able to put the team together. I think it's just one player in the team, in their starting 11, who isn't based in Europe.
Yes.
That's a completely different dynamic for an American team, So I think that's a very good one. But speaking of the Germanys and, the Brazils and all of that, we've had the big stars show up in some of these games. We've had, the Messis, the Ronaldos. They've had their moments. We've had Neymar, who seems to have had an injury now, but we're not sure if he's going to come back at some point during the tournament. What has been the highlight for you in the tournament? The names, the big names, or the teams?
If I say the big names, we'll have to go back to the Argentina, Saudi Arabia. But then, for me, the standout has been the whole organization of the whole World Cup.
Yeah.
Right from the start. Though they had their whole bad names and all the whole scandals and everything about getting the hosting rights. But notwithstanding, the whole setup of the World Cup has been excellent.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go, the opening ceremony, all down to, I don't think there's, this should be like the first World Cup where each match, there's something like a
almost like an opening ceremony before every game.
I've never seen that.
I know. I was saying, are they going to have 64 opening ceremonies or opening things? I don't know what they are.
I pray they do, because they've been different, one after the other.
Yeah.
So
okay, let's talk about this Messi and Ronaldo conversation now. It's gone on for years, and the belief is that this is probably both their last World Cups. They've both had games already. They've both scored, and it looks like, there's now talk about who's breaking world record. Ronaldo has scored in the first player to score in 5 World Cups. We heard that Messi is the first to score an assist. Everybody's trying to bring in their own dynamic into the statistics. And of course, the conversation about who the GOAT is continues. Do you think one of them will be in the finals based on what you've seen so far? Everybody wants an Argentina versus Portugal final for some reason, so that we can finally end this debate. Based on their showing so far, have they impressed you?
Portugal, they tried. They tried to break down the Ghanaian team, but they weren't that impressive. Then for the Argentina team, it's Messi. It's Messi. Saudi Arabia, they tried, and I think they just got a knack of it. The first half, they weren't getting it, but second half, they came out like a different team, and they nullified Messi, and definitely nullified Argentina. But the second game, Mexico tried to do that right from the get-go. Once you get the ball, they counter-press and they dispossess you, but Messi, what more can you say? You
think you can tell he's a Messi guy in the Messi versus Ronaldo debate? Let's talk Africa now.
Okay.
I think a lot of us were completely disappointed that it took 5 games for us to see the first African goal. 4 teams played, no goal. Ghana finally came on, had a good game. There's controversies about whether the referee did what or not. Even though some people on the other side say, well, you guys did this to South Africa. This was how you guys got to the World Cup. So I guess karma is catching up. But with Africa's performance, we finally have our first win with Senegal against Qatar. Everybody kind of expected that. Have you seen something that might give you some confidence? It's okay, this tournament might be different from Russia. We had all 5 representatives from Africa crash out in the first round. Do you think that will be different this time based on what you've seen?
No, because first of all, the groupings helped a lot. Talking from an African perspective, we'll just have Qatar out already, so leaving us with Ghana, leaving us with Senegal, Netherlands and Ecuador in that group A. Meaning, if Senegal gets a good result, they're going through.
Yeah.
So at least from my as an African man,
we have one leg in there.
Hopefully, we beat Ecuador and we qualify. Then the other side, at the tail end of the group, which is Ghana, hopefully they perform.
In a tougher dynamic. Their group is pretty crazy.
They still have to meet South Korea, and we've seen what Asians are doing in this World Cup. And then you still have to meet Uruguay. So hopefully...
That was like a grudge match, because they had the Uruguay 2010 World Cup
They will bring
drama.
it back. I'm sure it's still in the back of their heads. They will still bring it back. But I think from the Ghanaian team, no one from that 2010 World Cup is in this squad. So hopefully they come with a different mindset of not like a revenge mission. Let's just play our game the way we played Portugal, and we do our thing, and we just... Hopefully we make... Or they
do
make
you really look at that Ghanaian team and have confidence? And this is coming from a point of view of, a lot of people on the continent are rooting for Ghana. You know, Ghana has shown the sparks in the past sometimes. You know, but you look at that team, there's been debates about are they really good enough? You know, Andreayo, he sparks sometimes doesn't show up. Yes, he did score a goal on the day against Portugal. But looking at the team, yes, Senegal might be the one I think a lot of people believe. Sadly, Mane is not there. But with Ghana, do you see the same spark?
Well, Ghana, they have the team. Out of the whole 5 teams, apart from Senegal being the African champions, if there's going to be another team that's going to qualify that or looks like qualifying from their group, is more or less Ghana. Hopefully, all 5 qualifies, but well, Ghana looks like a real deal because they got the individual players like you mentioned, Ayew. He's got his younger brother there too, and Kudus that plays for Ajax. That guy is something else. Yeah.
But there's Morocco as well. I mean, Morocco is with Belgium, Croatia, and Canada. I think they drew their first game.
Yes.
And I think they are currently playing Belgium. Belgium is probably the toughest nut to crack. And I can actually see now that Morocco is leading by a goal, which is crazy.
Wow, which is good for
us. Morocco beats Belgium. They have 4 points now.
Yes.
And I think they still have Canada to play, I believe.
Yes.
Doesn't that give you some...
Now you've given... now you brought up this...
I don't think anybody saw them beating Belgium.
No one.
The game is still on, though. Yeah.
Now, if they get the decent results here, at least avoid defeat in this one, they go into the last game confident that against the Canadian team, which on paper, they don't have excellent players like compared to the Moroccans.
Yeah.
But... let's give it to them.
Yeah.
Let them hold on to this lead. Now you say they are leading. Or if they can double it and then go into the final game, at least avoid defeat there.
Yeah.
That was going to make it 3, hopefully.
Of all of them, Cameroon seems to be the toughest one. You know, Cameroon lost already to Switzerland.
Yes.
We're playing Serbia. I
Yes.
think Serbia is one of those teams that would always tough to crack. They might not score you, but you most likely will not score them.
It's very, very difficult.
And then they play Brazil still, you know, at the end of all of it. How do you think they're going to handle that?
Well, you know, Serbia they were the team that denied Portugal the automatic qualification. So that speaks a lot already. For them to go to Portugal and deny Portugal and Ronaldo that automatic ticket means they're not there for just the taking. So hopefully, Cameroon, they do us proud. Then the big one against Brazil. Probably with the absence of Neymar, maybe they can see maybe the problem will be reduced for them.
Tunisia looks like they lost to Australia already. So, I mean, they seem to be... fingers crossed for Morocco if they can pull this off. Then, of course, hopefully Ghana has the fights in them and Senegal... I'm a little jealous that Nigeria is not there. I tweeted a couple of days ago when the upsets were running in, you know, people were beating up these big games, and I tweeted, we would have won this World Cup. Of course, I was kidding. But it gives you a sense of what could have been if Nigeria was there. But we saw that friendly against Portugal where we lost 4-0 just before the World Cup. You know, do you feel like this would have been an interesting tournament for Nigeria? As good would it make it?
Well, if you're going to go by the friendly, I would say probably their minds were not there because they were not going to...
They really had nothing to lose.
And then probably they want to put too much action into it because the other team, Portugal, we are going for the World Cup. So imagine you break a Ronaldo's leg or a Joao Felix's leg.
What happened to
you? You look bad on your career. Probably that's why they looked at that game. But Nigeria as a whole, if we had gone to that World Cup, I'm sure we like the big stage.
We have some players who are doing pretty well. Osimhen is doing amazing right now. Iwobi has suddenly come into the form of his life. You know, there's always the guys from Leicester, Detty, they're always stalwart. So, I mean, maybe it's just the bias in me and the love I have for the Super Eagles. But I just keep wondering, what could have been if we were at this tournament. But anyway, let's talk about the tournament now as a whole. You've talked about the fact that Qatar is doing an amazing job, but there's all of these controversies as well that have been swirling around the tournament. Do you think football is winning over all of the news that seems to have dominated before the tournament itself started, and even while the tournament is going on? Do you think football is finally taking over the headlines, and how interesting the tournament has been is good enough, for Qatar to, say they're doing a great job?
Yeah, football is definitely winning because before the World Cup started, we already heard about their whole rights. If you don't want this, if you want to do this, don't do this here. We just have 1 month to celebrate this football festival. So just abide by the rules and let's get it done. But football as a whole, at least the whole Saudi Arabia, I always go back to Saudi Arabia, Argentina. I think that made everybody like, let's just keep that aside. Let's keep it aside and enjoy the game. And I think that's what has been going on. No one, from just before I came in, no one really talks about the whole controversies again, about them getting the hosting rights and whatnot, about the whole other things that trying to cover up. But then, football is winning.
Yeah.
Football is winning, and we would love to see this go on, continue like this till the end of the tournament.
Are you happy with the timing, though? Because that's one thing I think that keeps throwing me off about having a World Cup in November, December. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. I mean, the tournament is interesting now, so we might have forgotten. How do you think that affects leagues eventually? Because people are going to go back to their leagues in January again and have to go back to league football halfway through things. Do you think this timing works? I mean, I knew it probably won't continue like this going forward, but what do you think about the timing?
Well, the timing was just basically because of the weather there. If they had played in during the summer, we'll be hearing news about the heat stroke and everybody, maybe long breaks and all, but they consider that, okay, let's give it around the same period when the weather will be conducive for us to play the football game. And then the state-of-the-art stadiums that are building for this World Cup alone has already helped with it. But after this, they all have to go back to the players, will have to go back to their club commitments, and hopefully they carry the form which they brought into the World Cup, and after the World Cup, they take it back to their club sides and carry on with it. But generally, this is perfect for me, as considering the weather and everything. We know how Middle East is during the summer, so they might not have had it easy. The players, having it easy playing during that summer period. So November, December is the ideal time.
I mean, while we're probably saying goodbye to the Ronaldos and Messis of this world, the future looks exciting. I don't know if you agree with me. We have talk about an Mbappe who's already scored more goals than Thierry Henry at the World Cup for France. We have talk about Olivier Giroud, who's about to break the all-time record for international football in France. We have people like Bukayo Saka, who are still so young but are already scoring goals at the World Cup. Are you excited for the future? And who do you think is going to be the star of this tournament with all of these big names, both old and new?
Presently, Mbappe is writing all the headlines for the good side. Mbappe just is Kylian.
Yeah.
So going forward, I feel, though I don't want an old head winning the World Cup again, but if there's going to be an old head winning the World Cup, it's going to be either Brazil for me, or maybe France.
Yeah.
France.
Both of them, I think, have shown.
They look like they can retain the trophy, and Brazil. It's been a long time. They've been at the top of the world. So it's over 20 years, and that was Cafu lifting it. So I think this is Neymar's time, hopefully.
So you're already predicting. Who do you think is going to win the World Cup? Let me put you on.
Personally, I will go.
Okay, who do you want to win, and who do you think will win?
Two questions at the same time. Okay, who do I want to win? Brazil.
Okay.
As a football lover, Brazil. Okay. Well,
who do you think will win?
From the first two games they played in their France. Let's leave for France. I feel France might retain it. Going on with how they play and hopefully the qualification, how they go out from the group. If they finish first in their group, maybe they meet a lesser team and then they can use it and go to the top again. But as I asked before, Seleção.
I'm terrible at predictions. Let me first start with that. But I'm almost sick of the fact that the same countries win the World Cup every time. There's 200 and something countries in the world. There's 32 teams that come at every tournament. And if it's not France, it's Italy, it's Germany, it's Spain, it's Brazil, it's Argentina. Come on. I really hope we can see a brand new winner. I went for the underdog, Japan as my favorite. I really thought I was probably alone in that. They've gone on to lose their second game, but we'll see how that goes. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back to stay with us.
I am ready for your action. Just you should
Welcome back. We're about just a few days away, I believe, to December. And I'm the biggest proponent of the fact that Nigeria and Lagos State in particular needs to make Detty December a proper tourism drive for the states. It's grown organically to become this thing where literally every day in December in Lagos is a party. We're going to be talking Detty December. What it looks like in an economy like this today. I'm joined now by Excel Job. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny.
It's not funny
a different
at all.
year for everybody financially. Yep. I saw someone tweet today about the fact that in just a couple of months, a loaf of bread she used to buy at her supermarket has gone from about 400 naira to 1,200. That's bread. And this is across board. But Detty December has become this culture in Lagos for a couple of years now. There's a party every day, there's concerts, there's clubbing, there's just, and it has a lot to do with spending, but having fun while you're doing that. Do you see that happening this year? I mean, you are in the sector, so have you seen a decline generally as the year has come?
I mean, I'm going to answer that question from two perspectives. I think generally, the Nigerians are very resilient. They're going to find...
They still like their groove.
Yeah, Lagosians, Nigerians, we're going to find a way to have fun regardless. So Detty December will happen. There will just be some changes here and there. I think this year we might get a lot of house parties. People coming together and celebrating in their small silos. We're still going to get our brand-sponsored events
here and there.
Here and there. I think that the major headache for like show promoters or people who usually organize events this year is getting money out of brands, because this is a third world music industry, right? So a lot of the funds that are used for creating these events are brand sponsored. This is an open secret. So without the brands, you're really going to struggle if you try to do it on your own. And the inflation has been real. The brands who would sponsor these events, they've also had to increase prices. They're dealing with the fact that customers are still adjusting to those increased prices. There's a lot going on across board, so there might not be as much brand support as usual. But I know that Nigerians will always find a way. The Lagosians will always find a way.
I mean, something you mentioned there that is very interesting. And I think when you talk about smaller sort of events or parties, I think the COVID years has sort of kickstarted that. Because I mean, in 2020, there were literally no concerts. Maybe just pockets here and there. And then this Ilashe culture sort of blew up. People started going to beach houses. People were having smaller parties in their spaces.
Pool parties.
So it's kind of started that way. But does that still feel like Detty December? Because the Detty December initially was about concerts, all of this massive events. Does that change what Detty December is now? I
mean, I think...
how does that affect brands even?
Smaller... I think that that's even a good question. How does it affect brands? I think brands need to also find creative ways to still plug into this smaller, events. I also think that it doesn't take away from the spirit of Detty December, because the spirit of Detty December is having fun, like really, really going out there and having fun. And to be honest, right, with concerts sometimes tend to be the least fun thing in December. They can be very stressful. They said it to start by 10, it starts by 2 a.m. Stuff like that usually gets the people tired and on edge.
We just want to have fun.
People want to have fun. So it might even be less stressful to bother about concerts and like do private things with their friends. I don't think it takes away from the spirit of Detty December at all. And now, something that started happening is even with DJs, right? Like DJs could come together, like 5-6 DJs say, hey, we're doing our own created events. And people will go. Like there's a big DJ event that's happening this December, like 20 DJs at the beach. So
things like that will be more. But speaking of concerts now, I mean, I think we're all agreed that this has been Ashake's year. Nobody can take that away from him. It's so hard to imagine that his first single dropped this year. Most people still think he's been around for ages. But I mean, credit to him, he wants to have a concert this year. And we've seen the figures, and he trended all over social media. Let's talk about where are we supposed to find this money just to come and groove to your music. Is that a pattern you think we're going to see this year, where people are going to have to bring out that kind of amount to have fun at concerts as against what it was in the past?
I think so. I think that a lot of things have been happening over the years. One, concert goers have been doing their best to hold show promoters accountable and say, hey, we deserve better. concerts. I mean, we all sit here on Instagram and we see our guys go perform in London, in US, and the experience is much better. And a hotel or somewhere else is just not it. So this is what my friend Motolani Alake described it as the price of advancement. This is what's going to happen. We're going to get more of it. Plus, there's also inflation happening, right? So I think that if you pay, where the real problem is, people pay that amount and go to the show, and it still starts very late, or it's still the same boring show flow, then there's a problem. But with inflation and with us asking that we want better experiences. I mean, this is not just common to Nigeria. Currently now in the US, there's a big drama with Taylor Swift and Ticketmaster and Live Nation. You know, so
it's a thing globally.
It's a thing globally.
We all have to just kind of adjust. But talking about Detty December and how things might dip this year, are we making too much noise about nothing? Because we also need to remember that the Detty December culture became heavy because of the people in the diaspora who come back. You know, all our cousins and brothers and friends and even non-Nigerians who want to experience this. That's going to happen again. And more than ever, they have more naira in their pockets when they change.
I'm telling you.
And dollars. Do you think it's really going to affect anything when those guys come in? I mean, they're going to start coming in very soon.
I think that the fun part, the fun part of Detty December is the IJGBs, as we call them, coming in and also mixing with the locals. Like the combination is what really brings out the Detty December. It's not one-sided. Like they need, like guys would sit and wait for girls from that side, girls would sit and wait for guys. So that's coming togetherness, if I may say, is what makes Detty December
spirit different.
But you're not wrong. I mean, they're coming in with that hard currency when they change it to
800 naira, 700 naira. What's going on?
I mean, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
Okay. What are you looking forward to the most this year, different from probably the years before?
I'm looking forward to better concerts. I'm a music person, so concerts is a big thing for me. So I'm looking forward to better experiences. I think that 4 or 5 years, the audience has put out their complaints about certain things with concerts, right? We want to see improved planning. We want to see improved show flow, sound, improved experiences at the shows, security. We want to make sure that a venue doesn't have a 5,000 people capacity, and what happens is like there are like 7 or 8K people there. We want things to improve with our concert, because music is our biggest export from the entertainment side. It's our biggest export. So we have people coming in, and more people are going to keep coming in. Like even people who are non-Nigerians will come in, Ghanaians will come in, Kenyans will come in. This has been happening. It's going to keep happening more because our music is getting bigger. I was in Scotland and I was in South Africans and they were singing Organize by Shake word for word. They don't understand Yoruba, but they were just, you know. So the bigger our industry gets, the more we have to improve our home.
On a final note now, and answer this very carefully because it's very personal to me. Do you think Accra stole Lagos's thunder? They had this year of return a couple of years ago, which has now kickstarted their own version of Detty December. Lagosians always say, "Oh, we started it first. Ghana copied us." But there's been talk about the fact that they've taken it to a different level. They have all of this Afrochella and all of these things, Afro Nation. Do you think their version, which seems to have some government support and probably better structure, has taken away Lagos's thunder? Or do you think Lagos will always be what it is?
I don't think it has taken Lagos's thunder, but I think we need to be careful. It hasn't taken Lagos's thunder because Lagos is Lagos and all the superstars are here, right? And which is why I liked what you said when you started this segment about the government being involved in Detty December and making it a really, really cultural thing, because that's what has happened.
I mean, I think it's an amazing tourism. The rest of the world goes to sleep in December. Detty
December affects everybody. It affects and I'm talking like from like cab drivers, right, to hotels, to restaurants. Everybody feels the impact. The amount of money that comes into Lagos at that time is ridiculous. So Ghana hasn't taken it yet. But they are really trying. They're really trying. We have to sit up.
Sit up.
We have to sit up.
All of you there, please. Because I can't, my heart can't take it.
Nah.
They can't take the World Cup from us and take
No way.
Thank you very much for joining us, man. I think everybody's ready for a great December.
Yes,
we just need to have fuel before then, yeah. Please give us fuel. I don't understand what's happening.
Hopefully
we need to move around. But like I always say, you can follow the conversation on social media. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you send us a message. I'll see you next Sunday.
The way you move, really wanna get with you. Don't just stand